Hey Bobcats, Mr. Peterson here. In the last video, we saw how to go through the steps of completing the square. In this lesson, we're going to learn about how we can actually use completing the square to find the zeros of a function. And that's our learning goal today. How do we find the roots of a quadratic function by completing the square? So we already should have this table in our notes. These are the steps that we wrote down for completing the square. If you don't have them, go ahead and jot them down or take a second to refresh your memory. In a nutshell, we need to make sure we have 1 as the a. So we need to divide, if necessary, divide both sides of the equation by the a to get it to be 1. And then to complete the square, we need to divide b in half, or divide b by 2, excuse me, and then square it, and then add that to both sides of the equation. And now we have a perfect square trinomial. So we factor it, and that's how we get it. So let's try actually using this. All right. So first of all, I have numbers on either side of the equation. So what I want to do is I want to add 6x here to both sides. So this gives me x squared plus 6x is equal to 27. Alright, so this is where completing the square is going to come in handy, and actually I'm going to back up a couple steps and leave myself a little bit of room. Equals 27. Alright, so now I need to think, what is 6 divided by 2? Well, it's 3, and then I want to square that, that's 9. So I want to add 9, and this is totally legal because I'm also going to add 9 to this side of the equation. Alright, now over here we've got a perfect square trinomial, which will factor into x plus 3, the quantity of all that, squared. And over here I have 27 plus 9, which is 36, another perfect square, coincidentally. Alright, so I take the square root of both sides, and I get x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 6. Alright, so now to find my zeros, I take away 3 from both sides. So I'm going to come up here to continue this problem. I'm going to have that x is equal to positive 6 minus 3, which would be 3. That's one answer. And then I also have x is equal to, because of the negative, a negative 6 minus 3, which would be a negative 9. So here are my two answers, my two zeros, 3 and negative 9. All right, let's try another one. 2x squared plus 8x equals 12. All right, now remember we want to have 1 as our x squared coefficient. So in this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything by 2. We're going to divide everything in the problem by 2. And then we get x squared plus 4x is equal to 6. All right, and actually I didn't write that quite right. I want to leave myself a little bit of room. Equals 6. Alright, so now I need to do half of 4. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. I want to square it, which is 4. So I add 4. And again, it's legal because I'm going to add 4 to both sides of my equation. Alright, now I have a perfect square trinomial here. This is x plus 2, the quantity of all that squared, is equal to 6 plus 4 is 10. Alright, so I take the square root of both sides, so I have x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. So I would want to take away 2 from both sides. Take away 2 from both sides. Since the square root of 10 is an irrational number, we're not going to worry about solving it now. If we wanted to get out our calculator, we could get an approximate answer, but for the purposes of this lesson, we don't need that. So we know that x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. And I want to stress again, there are still two roots here. We could do negative 2 plus the square root of 10 and then negative 2 minus the square root of 10. And those would be our two answers. But if we write it in this form, I know it looks like it's only one, but there are two roots there. Alright, completing the square is also really helpful. Oh wait, hold up, I'm getting ahead of myself. Try this one. And this one. Okay, completing the square is also really useful for writing functions in vertex form, and we're going to do just a slight different, do it slightly differently. All right, so here we have our trinomial. We have 1 as the leading coefficient already. All right, so what we're going to say here is we're going to say that f of x is equal to x squared plus 10x. And I'm going to write both of those in parentheses, and I'm going to leave a little room. And then minus 13. Now in the last problem, we stressed how we were going to do the same thing to both sides. Well, that's also the same thing as if I do it on one side, but then immediately right after that take it away. And that's what we're going to do on this part, all right? So first of all, we need to ask ourselves, what's half of 10? That's 5, and then square it. That's 25. So plus 25, all right? So I added 25 to this side of the equation. I also need to take away 25 to this side of the equation. And in doing that, I didn't change the value. I added 25 and took away 25. It did not change the value of our equation. But now we have f of x is equal to the quantity of x plus 5 squared. And then over here we have negative 13 plus a negative 25 would be a negative 38. So here is our function in vertex form, and we want to identify what the vertex is. Our vertex would be negative 5, comma negative 38 would be our vertex. One way to kind of quickly check that is to do the line of symmetry test. You know that the line of symmetry is negative b over 2a. Negative b over 2a. Well, b is 10, so negative 10 over 2 times a, which is 1. So that's negative 5, and that's the symmetry we got over here. There's the negative 5. All right, let's do one more. Write this in vertex form, a little trickier here. We're going to do a little bit more complicated algebra. All right, so this time we don't have a leading coefficient of 1, but that's okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to factor out a 2 from the whole expression. So g of x is equal to 2, and we're going to factor out. And then so when we do that, we're left with an x squared minus and a 4x, and I'm going to leave a little bit of space. And then back behind here we have plus 3. All right, so now let's complete the square here. We have a negative 4 divided by 2. That would be a negative 2, and we want to square it. It would be positive 4. All right, and I added 4 here, so I'm going to need to add 4 out here, but I also need to multiply by 2. So if I do 4 times 2, that's 8. So it's really like I'm going to be, hold up, I said something a little bit funny back here, and I just realized what I said. Remember here our strategy is we're adding to one side, and we're also going to take away from one side. So we're going to take away an 8 back here. We added 4 times 2, that's 8. So we're going to take away 8 back on the back end. All right, so now we've factored this. We can write this as a binomial now. This is x minus 2 squared, and then we have our 2 out front, and then 3 minus 8, that's negative 5. So now we have our function in vertex form, 2 times the quantity of x minus 2 squared minus 5. And then, of course, you could put that in your calculator to check the zeros. Why don't you try this one and try this one. All right, I'll see you all in class.